of the morning. We're going to kick it all off with a bit of sewage, Janelle. This is concern over the downgrading of sewage spills. We know this is a huge problem along the coastlines of the UK and further inland with our sort of streams and rivers. Tell us more about this story.
So there was a total of 1,849 sewage pollution incidents that were initially categorised as significant, and they were downgraded to no impact. So campaign group 38 Degrees got some information that they found this out, and there was no reason why they were downgraded. And so they're trying to find out whether water companies requested or influenced the downgrading, because their performance and their bonuses are tied to the sewage. So the less incidents there are that are significant is the more they're able to access their bonuses because of Ofwat on the regulation. So I guess the question is, are these things downgraded because they're not serious, or have they been downgraded because actually they've put pressure?
And how is that allowed to happen?
And how is that allowed to happen? And I think with the regulation, there's a lot of us thinking, how independent is all of this? Where's the transparency? How do we know? And also, we just want clean water to swim in. I don't think it's too much to ask with the amount we pay for our water bills that actually the coast is protected for so many environmental and just reasons of, if you live on the coast, you live there because you want to go in the water.
Just below that story in the newspaper, we've not got it up on the screen there, but there is a picture of those enjoying the traditional Boxing Day sea dip in Llandudno, complete with an inflatable dinosaur. I don't know whether they've got that on for protection from the sewage, but they've obviously checked the app, decided it's safe to go for a swim that day, and so many people do. You just can't get in to your sort of local sea, like from the coastline, without checking it out first to see what's actually happening in the sea that morning or afternoon or whatever time you go for your wild water swim. Right, let's talk about this story in the Telegraph, James. This is about public sector pay. It's tripled under this Labour government, apparently.
Yes, so this is the Telegraph contrasting the amount to which average monthly pay in the public sector, such as education and health, has gone up since the new government was elected in July. And they're talking about it and framing it in the terms of those public sector pay rises. They agreed on things like the railway drivers and the junior doctors as well. And I think they're tapping into a concern that some have, and pushed by the Conservatives, for instance, that the private sector is going to only be seen as a kind of cash cow to fund growth in the public sector. I think there's some argument about that in terms of the economic growth, in terms of what we're seeing in terms of the private sector. But really, it's an attempt to kind of look at the perks and benefits enjoyed by those in the public sector, teachers, etc., compared to those who are in private business.
It's quite interesting, isn't it, to use the term perks when it comes to public sector, particularly for teachers, because I suppose a lot of people would argue and say, yeah, look, you know, the pay premium has tripled, but it's been lagging behind the private sector for so many years, and we are talking about nurses, teachers, doctors, you know.
I mean, and I think that, as I say, this is more about when I refer to perks, I meant the pensions that they enjoy, which sort of final contributions, etc., which I think many regards as a kind of benefit in kind, which otherwise would have put a lot of them leaving off the public sector many years ago.
OK. Janelle, in The Guardian, private renting. Millions of workers struggling to pay private rents. We've done a lot of that, a lot on this here on Sky News, you know, following working families who can't afford their rent.
And it's really hard, 2/3 living in, and that's a massive, massive amount of people. And only 32% said they were able to keep up with their rent payments without difficulty. And I think when we look at what's on the horizon, when we look at the fact that energy prices are going to rise again, water's going to rise again, council tax will rise again, petrol will rise. You just wonder, how are families actually going to cope when we're here this time next year? This feels like this will still be the story. And what are we going to do? I just don't understand where the help is going to come from or how people are going to do, because in the end, if people can't afford to pay their private rents, where will they go? How will councils be able to house enough people if there was some kind of collapse? So it does feel like we're kind of teetering on the edge of something, and this survey was by YouGov for Shelter, and just showing that 23% of people are constantly struggling to pay their rent, and with food also being quite pricey, people are having to make some really, really tough choices, and I think it's a really hard time for families.
And the government, James, has said that they're prioritising house building, building social housing, affordable housing. I mean, what's affordable? It depends what area you're in now, right? But that takes time.
Of course, yes. And I mean, they have a flagship policy to build 1.5 million homes over the course of this Parliament. As you say, though, it's going to take time. It'll also take time for all those new builds to then filter through in terms of reduced prices and bring costs down. The truth is that we just haven't built enough infrastructure. And it's a recurring theme throughout these stories, whether it's sewage or housing, there's just not enough of the building that we need to keep Britain fit for the 21st
So
century.
stressful for those families. They haven't got years to wait. They're taking it month by month. Right, let's talk about Stonehenge, James.
Yeah.
Stonehenge built as a riposte to migrant surge.
Yeah, so this is basically some experts looking at the stone circle and suggesting that actually it was created as a symbol of unity at a time in which England at the time was facing a huge amount of influx of immigration from Germany and the Netherlands, and it comes alongside some re-evaluation of the stones, the altar stone at Stonehenge, which previously was believed to have come from Wales, actually now believed to come from Scotland. So they're saying that all these different rocks which form Stonehenge were actually brought together from across the country in order to serve as a sort of symbol against those from outside coming from Europe.
Again, they say why, but they never get to how.
Yeah.
How was it there? How was it built? How was it built?
I mean, it's the kind of infrastructure project we can only dream of in the 21st century.
Could we get those stones together
Absolutely.
now? Not sure.
No, definitely not. We are going to talk about a missing cat now, Janelle, back home after 7 years.
I know, a bit of light relief after all of these stories, which are not as happy. But a cat, so the family lost their pet, vanished. They moved away. They thought they'd never see him again. It turns out the cat stayed in the old area, was being fed by various people. Then one of its regular feed, anyone who has a cat knows they stay out. They'll go where there's food. And the feeder moved, and then they found the chip and reunited the cat with its family because it was microchipped. I love that. My sister's cat ran away. She's going to hate
They
me
do.
for saying
They
this.
always come back. We moved to our house. I think we'd been in it a year, and all of a sudden this cat just started appearing. It started appearing at the back door, and it was the old owner's cat.
Wow.
They'd been gone a year, but the cat just decided it wanted to move back in. Clearly didn't like the new house. Just kept turning up at our door.
Yeah, my sister spotted her cat walking across the road with a new collar on. So
Upgraded.
Yeah, gone to a better owner. No offence to your sister. Let's talk about Beatlemania. TikTok seeing a sort of resurgence in interest of the Fab Four, James.
Yes, this is the enduring influence of the Beatles, and basically 60 years after first coming to fame, Cavern Club, etc., they're going big on TikTok once again, and people dressing up as one of the leading men and acting their songs, basically. And so it's just about different generations, people born in the 90s and the noughties, singing songs about people that they never actually got to see live, and just about how Beatlemania is back.
Yeah, and the Sgt. Pepper outfits were a look. I liked it. I like that. What else have we got time for? Let's talk about video games, Janelle. A lot of those being played up and down the UK over the festive period, and with people getting new consoles and the like, and trying to escape, relatives and stuff like that.
But there's a survey that says it's not all bad news for the kids who are glued to their computer games, that apparently...
Hang on, Teddy, if you're watching at home, turn the TV off now. You've still got a
close your
time
ears,
limit
close your ears.
on your video game
But
use.
apparently they're saying that actually many people will be then inspired to take up the sports they're playing in real life. And so that's what they're saying, that people aged 3 to 34 found a quarter of people said they would take it up. And
Okay.
I'm a big golfer, and apparently the RNA say...
Oh, my son's going to be a Premier League footballer because he plays enough of it. OK, thank you both for your company this evening. We'll be back at the top of the hour.
There's always more to the news than a headline.